The council chamber was a marvel of alien architecture, a ring of pale, glistening metals and cascading lights, suspended within a vast, transparent dome that framed the cold expanse of stars. As the room settled into silence, all eyes turned to Daniel Reyes, Earth's representative and diplomat. He stood alone in the center, clad in the navy blue suit of his position, yet his presence exuded a quiet resilience that dared anyone to underestimate him. Across the chamber sat High Commander Karlax, a towering figure of scales and sharp, gold-tipped horns, a being known for his strategic brilliance and ruthless ambition. Karlax leaned forward, his yellow eyes narrowing as his voice echoed through the room, heavy with condescension. "Human," he hissed, the word laced with distaste. "Your people's rapid advances have not gone unnoticed. The Coalition sees your recent ventures into militarized space as a threat to the delicate balance we have cultivated across the galaxy." Daniel held his gaze, meeting Karlax's disdain with unwavering calm. He understood well the implied threat beneath Karlax's words. The Coalition saw Earth as an upstart, a fragile planet that had grown too bold too quickly. But Daniel was here to prove that humanity's place among the stars was no accident. "We are not the threat you believe us to be," Daniel replied, his voice steady, carrying just enough steel to assert himself without betraying fear. "Earth has always aimed for peace. Our advancements are for our own defense, nothing more." The words hung in the air, met with a collective silence from the Coalition representatives around him, an assembly of beings with gleaming carapaces, gossamer wings, and eyes that blinked in slow, deliberate intervals. They were not impressed. Karlax sneered, folding his massive arms. "Defense? Such innocent words. But history shows that once a race grows strong, peace is the first ideal to shatter. Your kind is reckless, volatile. Left unchecked, you will disrupt the order we have so carefully built." Daniel fought the urge to clench his fists. He could feel the scrutiny of each alien leader, their eyes assessing him as though he were an insect in a glass jar. "If we are reckless, it is because we've had to adapt quickly in a galaxy filled with threats," he countered, his voice rising slightly, but remaining composed. "We know what it's like to survive against the odds. And we know that the price of freedom is constant vigilance." A murmur rippled through the chamber, a sound Daniel couldn't entirely interpret but sensed was a mix of amusement and irritation. Karlax's lips curled into a mocking smile. "The price of freedom," he repeated, his tone dripping with derision. "Consider this. You have 2 rotations of your home planet to dismantle your defenses. If you comply, you will continue under our guidance. If you resist," he leaned in, his shadow looming over Daniel, "the Coalition will annihilate every last remnant of your precious freedom." The ultimatum hung in the air, stark and heavy. Daniel's heart pounded, but he kept his expression unreadable, drawing on years of diplomatic training. He had expected a harsh stance from the Coalition, but such a bold declaration of aggression was beyond even his calculations. However, he refused to show them any hint of vulnerability. "I will take your message back to Earth," Daniel replied evenly. "But remember this, we are not a species that bows easily." The Coalition members exchanged knowing glances, some appearing mildly amused by his words. Karlax gave a dismissive wave of his clawed hand. "Then return to your planet, and pray it has the wisdom you seem to lack." The meeting adjourned, and Daniel turned on his heel, walking briskly out of the chamber, his pulse a steady drumbeat of defiance. The moment he was alone in the shuttle that would take him back to Earth, he allowed himself a deep breath, letting the weight of the encounter settle over him. The Coalition's message was clear: humanity was either to disarm and submit or face total annihilation. Back on Earth, Daniel gathered with the United Earth Council in a war room deep within a secure facility. The walls hummed with encrypted transmissions, and the low light cast long shadows across the faces of Earth's leaders. Tension simmered in the air, a palpable undercurrent of fear and determination. Daniel recounted every detail of the meeting with the Coalition, his voice calm but firm, sparing none of the severity of Karlax's threat. When he finished, the room fell into a contemplative silence, each person grappling with the weight of their options. Lana Kim, a leading scientist with a mind as sharp as her words, broke the silence. "We can't comply," she said, her voice ringing with conviction. "Disarming would leave us completely vulnerable. It would be surrender without a fight." General Marcus Hale, a grizzled veteran with scars to match his reputation, nodded in agreement. "If we disarm, we might as well invite them to conquer us. At least with our defenses, we stand a fighting chance." Daniel leaned forward, his gaze sweeping across the table. "We've survived on Earth by adapting, by fighting when we needed to. This is no different, just on a larger scale." He paused, letting the weight of his next words sink in. "But we need more than weapons. We need strategies, new alliances, technologies, whatever it takes to outsmart a force that sees us as inferior." A murmur of agreement spread around the room, accompanied by nods and murmured affirmations. They were a collection of leaders, scientists, and soldiers bound by the shared knowledge that this was a fight for survival, not just for themselves, but for all of humanity. Lana crossed her arms, her eyes thoughtful. "I have a few ideas. If we can enhance our defense systems with adaptive technology, something that responds dynamically to attacks, we might be able to give ourselves a tactical edge. It won't make us invincible, but it could buy us time." General Hale grinned, the grim smile of a soldier ready to face impossible odds. "Time is all we need," he said. "Give us time, and we'll show them what humans are made of." Daniel felt a spark of hope. It was a slim chance, but it was enough. "Then let's get to work," he said, his voice steady with a quiet resolve that rippled through the room. "We have 2 rotations to prepare. Let's make every second count." The council broke into action, and Daniel stepped back, watching the controlled chaos unfold as plans began to take shape. His heart surged with a fierce pride. Humanity was outgunned, outmanned, and outmatched, but he knew one truth above all else: they would fight. And they would not go down quietly. As he left the room, Daniel allowed himself one final, defiant thought, aimed squarely at Karlax and the Coalition. We're not just fighting for survival, he mused. We're fighting to show the galaxy exactly what humanity is capable of. The hum of Earth's largest military complex was electric, a symphony of clanging metal, whirring machinery, and the voices of countless engineers and strategists working in tandem. Daniel Reyes watched the scene unfold from an observation deck, the intensity of it all mirroring the weight he felt pressing on his shoulders. Each passing hour brought them closer to the Coalition's deadline, and every decision he made could shape humanity's future. Lana Kim joined him, her expression as focused as ever, her eyes scanning the bustling floor below. "We're moving faster than anticipated," she said, her tone determined yet laced with underlying concern. "But we're still behind on adaptive shielding. If the Coalition attacks with their full force, we'll need every ounce of protection we can muster." Daniel nodded, his gaze never leaving the engineers below. "How much longer?" 2 days, maybe 3, she replied, a hint of frustration edging into her voice. "But even then, it's not guaranteed. Their technology is decades, if not centuries, ahead of ours. We're essentially rewiring our entire defense system from scratch." Daniel clenched his jaw. "We don't need perfection. We need surprise. The Coalition thinks they know us. They think we're predictable." He turned to her, his voice low but intense. "Let's prove them wrong." A signal flashed on the monitor beside them, drawing both their attention. The display read, "Incoming transmission from Galran Faction Secure Line 2. Lana's brow furrowed. "The Galrans? I thought they'd sworn neutrality. Seems like they're reconsidering." Daniel punched in his authorization code, and the screen flickered, revealing a grainy image of a Galran leader, a slender, silver-skinned being with dark, sunken eyes. "Commander Reyes," the Galran said in a voice as smooth as liquid metal, "I am the Rix of the Galran Council. I bring news, and a proposition." "The Rix," Daniel greeted, maintaining a professional composure. "We appreciate any assistance. Our situation here is tense." The Rix inclined his head. "Indeed. The Coalition's ultimatum has caused disquiet across the galaxy. Many of us resent their heavy-handed approach and see an opportunity in supporting a species willing to stand against them. Daniel felt a flicker of hope. You're offering an alliance? Not openly, Birx replied, a slight hint of wariness in his tone. But we can provide intelligence on the Coalition's movements and suggest strategies they would not anticipate. He paused, his expression sharpening. In exchange, we ask for access to your adaptive shielding technology, an idea our researchers find intriguing. Lana shot Daniel a wary glance, and he nodded subtly, understanding her caution. Revealing Earth's technology, untested as it was, could be risky. But they were running out of options, and the information the Rix offered could be the difference between survival and annihilation. It's a deal, Daniel said after a moment, his voice steady. We'll share our research as long as it remains confidential. The Rix inclined his head in agreement, his dark eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Very well. I will have my strategist transmit our intelligence within the hour. And, Commander, he added, a hint of respect breaking through his guarded expression, I hope humanity prevails. It would be refreshing. The transmission ended, and Lana let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Are you sure about this? Trusting them with adaptive tech? It's a gamble, Daniel admitted, his gaze hardening. But the Coalition has stacked the deck. We need every advantage, even if it means taking a risk. We'll keep our key technology hidden, only reveal what's essential. Over the next 2 days, Earth's forces operated in overdrive. Engineers worked around the clock, fortifying Earth's space defenses with the Gauan intelligence in mind. Each report from Nerix's network brought insights into the Coalition's standard formations, weak points, and favored weapons. It wasn't perfect, but it gave them something to hold on to, a sliver of strategy they could sharpen into an advantage. In a corner of the control room, Lana tinkered with a prototype shield generator, her hands quick and methodical as she adjusted the settings. The device hummed softly, emanating a faint blue glow. It's beautiful, Daniel said, watching her work. Lana managed a small, weary smile. If it works, maybe I'll let you keep it as a souvenir. Just then, General Hale strode over, his expression grave. Satellite imagery confirms movement on the Coalition's side. Their fleet is gathering, and we've detected energy signatures indicating they're mobilizing their heavier artillery. Daniel felt his pulse quicken. The deadline was approaching faster than expected. How much time? 18 hours, give or take, Hale replied, his voice carrying a steely resolve. They're making a show of it. They want us to see what's coming. Daniel nodded, a grim smile forming. Then let's give them a show of our own. As the hours ticked by, Daniel and his team went over the defense plans again and again, preparing contingencies for every possible scenario. Soldiers drilled with precision, pilots ran simulations, and engineers pushed their machines to their limits. Despite the gravity of the situation, a sense of unity settled over them, a collective understanding that this was more than just a battle. It was a testament to humanity's spirit. With mere minutes left before the Coalition's arrival, Daniel took his position in the command center, surrounded by walls of monitors displaying Earth's fleet and defenses, poised and ready. The silence in the room was thick, every eye trained on the screens, every mind braced for impact. A flash on the radar signaled the arrival of the first Coalition ships, enormous structures that dwarfed Earth's vessels. They moved in perfect formation, gliding through the blackness with an eerie precision, their sleek metallic exteriors reflecting the distant light of Earth's sun. Daniel's voice cut through the tense quiet. Activate the adaptive shielding. Lana gave a quick nod, her fingers flying across the console as she initiated the shields. A faint, pulsating dome appeared around the outer perimeter of Earth's fleet, flickering as it adapted to incoming data. Moments later, a barrage of energy blasts erupted from the Coalition's ships, colliding with the shield and lighting up the darkness like fireworks. The room held its collective breath as the shields absorbed the impact, fluctuating with each hit but holding firm. Shields are holding, Lana announced, a note of triumph in her voice. A cheer rose from the room, but Daniel remained focused, his gaze steady on the screens. This is just the beginning. Keep monitoring their patterns. Suddenly, an alert flashed. A coalition ship had broken formation, moving toward Earth's surface in a direct assault. Daniel's gut tightened. They're probing our defenses, looking for a weak point. General Hale growled, his voice low. Let them come. They'll see we're not the easy prey they expected. Daniel watched as the coalition ship approached, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He knew this was only a test, a measure of Earth's resolve. But if they survived, it would send a message louder than any words. The coalition's arrogance had underestimated humanity. But humanity, Daniel thought with a quiet, fierce pride, was about to show them what they were truly capable of. The countdown to survival had begun, and Earth was ready. The command center was a hive of controlled chaos. Lights flickered as status updates flashed across the screens, and the low hum of machinery was punctuated by rapid commands and reports filtering through the intercom. Daniel Reyes stood at the center, his gaze fixed on the screen displaying Earth's defenses as they faced down the coalition fleet. The shields had held so far, but he knew that the worst was yet to come. He turned to Lana, who was hunched over her console, adjusting settings on the adaptive shields, her face a mask of concentration. She barely looked up when she spoke, her voice tense but steady. We're getting closer to maxing out the shield's capacity. Every hit's making it harder for the system to recalibrate. How much time do we have? Daniel asked, keeping his tone even, despite the urgency gnawing at him. Lana's fingers danced over the console as she calculated. At this rate? Maybe 20 minutes before we start seeing real damage. She glanced up, her eyes meeting his with a flicker of worry. We need to reduce the load somehow. Daniel gave a curt nod, then looked to General Hale, who was monitoring the fleet's positions with a practiced eye. General, what's our fleet status? We've managed to maintain formation, but they're pushing us hard on the flanks. Hale replied, his voice like gravel. It's only a matter of time before they find a weak spot. Then let's create one, Daniel said, a plan forming in his mind. If we bait them with a calculated retreat on our left flank, we might be able to draw a portion of their fleet out of position. Hale raised an eyebrow, the hint of a smirk tugging at his lips. You want to lure them in? Daniel nodded. If we can isolate part of their forces, it'll buy us time to regroup and reinforce the shields. We just need them to think we're faltering. Hale's smirk grew. Consider it done. He began relaying orders, directing a handful of Earth's vessels to thin out on the left, creating an illusion of weakening defenses. As Daniel watched the fleet reposition, he caught sight of Lana's determined gaze. You think they'll fall for it? She asked, a faint smile playing on her lips. Daniel shrugged, a glint of optimism in his eyes. They think we're desperate. We might as well use that against them. Moments later, the coalition fleet took the bait. A segment of their ships broke formation, surging toward the supposed weak spot, eager to exploit what they believed was Earth's unraveling defense. Daniel clenched his fists as Earth's fleet moved to intercept, his heartbeat pounding like a drum in his chest. Now! He ordered. Close in on them. Earth's ships sprang into action, flanking the advancing coalition vessels and trapping them in a crossfire. Plasma blasts and laser beams lit up the void as the coalition's segment struggled against Earth's forces, caught in a chokehold they hadn't anticipated. The control room erupted in quiet murmurs of triumph, but Daniel didn't allow himself to relax. This was just the beginning. The coalition would quickly regroup, and when they did, they would come with even greater force. He turned his focus back to the screen, scanning for any movement from the coalition's command ship, an imposing warcraft bristling with weaponry and unmistakably piloted by none other than High Commander Karlax himself. In a secluded corner of the command center, a secure line flashed to life, and Lana looked up in surprise. Daniel, she called. We have an encrypted transmission. It's the Rix. Daniel's expression sharpened as he strode over. He punched in his access code, and the screen flickered to reveal Derrick's pale, enigmatic face. Commander Reyes, Derrick greeted, his voice unusually subdued. I have received reports on your situation. It appears the coalition underestimated your resolve. Daniel detected a hint of admiration in Eric's tone, though his face remained unreadable. You could say that. But we're still outmatched. They'll regroup soon, and when they do, it won't just be a skirmish, it'll be a slaughter. The Rix nodded, a calculating glint in his eyes. Perhaps there's a way to turn the tide in your favor. He leaned closer to the screen. The Coalition command ship houses their primary communications hub. If you can disrupt it, you'll fracture their coordination. Daniel's eyes widened. It was a risky proposition, but it made sense. Without unified orders, the Coalition fleet would be thrown into chaos, scrambling to reorganize. It was the kind of blow that could give humanity a real chance. How do we get close enough to disable it? Daniel asked, his voice low. Derrick's lips curved in a faint smile. Leave that to me. I can create a diversion on their flank, drawing attention away from the command ship. It will be up to you to exploit the opening. Daniel felt a surge of hope mixed with caution. Why would you go to such lengths for us? Derrick hesitated, a shadow of regret passing over his face. Because sometimes the only way to break a tyrant's hold is to show others that resistance is possible. His voice softened. Your people have shown courage. It's time the galaxy sees that courage rewarded. The transmission ended, leaving Daniel with a sense of urgency. He relayed the plan to General Hale, who responded with a grim nod. In a matter of minutes, Derrick's forces launched a sudden attack on the Coalition's far side, scattering their formation and shifting the battlefield's balance. True to his word, Derrick had drawn the Coalition's attention, giving Earth's forces the opportunity they needed. Now's our chance, Daniel ordered, eyes locked on the screen. Divert everything we have to the command ship. Earth's fleet moved swiftly, closing the distance to the Coalition's command vessel. Every second felt like a heartbeat, tense and fraught with the risk of failure. Daniel watched, his breath held as the first of their ships approached the command ship's perimeter. Lana, activate the shield disruptors, Daniel called, his voice a tight thread of focus. Lana pressed a series of commands, and a pulse rippled out from Earth's lead vessel, a silent wave that struck the command ship's defenses. The ship's shield flickered, then dimmed. They had an opening. Fire! Daniel commanded. Earth's ships unleashed their arsenal, a barrage of concentrated energy aimed directly at the command hub. The impact sent a cascade of sparks across the command ship's surface, and the screens in the control room showed the Coalition fleet reacting in disarray. Without central orders, they floundered, scrambling to respond. Daniel's shoulders relaxed, just slightly, as he watched the Coalition fleet scatter. But his relief was short-lived. A sudden, flashing red alert blared through the control room, accompanied by the alarmed voice of one of the tactical officers. Commander, a second Coalition wave is approaching. Reinforcements. Daniel's heart sank. It seemed the Coalition was determined to see Earth fall, regardless of the cost. He glanced around the room, meeting the eyes of his team, each face a mirror of his own resolve. We hold the line, he said, his voice steady. No matter what. With Earth's fleet battered but undeterred, the chapter closed with the Coalition's reinforcements advancing, and Daniel braced for the final stand. The command center was drenched in a dim, reddish glow as emergency lights blinked across consoles, casting fleeting shadows over the tense faces within. Daniel Reyes stood at the center, shoulders taut, eyes locked on the main screen that displayed the incoming Coalition reinforcements. An overwhelming wave of ships that filled the dark void of space, their formation precise and deadly. Second wave detected, a tactical officer confirmed, his voice barely concealing his dread. Estimated time to contact 4 minutes. Daniel felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him, but his gaze remained resolute. The Coalition's numbers were staggering, a reminder of the vast power they wielded. But he knew that surrendering wasn't an option, not now, not ever. Earth would fight, and if they fell, they'd do so with a defiance the galaxy wouldn't soon forget. Lana glanced at him, her face pale yet determined. Shields are at 30%. They won't last through a full-scale assault, but we can focus energy reserves on the fleet's core ships for a final line of defense. Daniel nodded, taking in her words. Do it. Prioritize the cruisers and defense platforms. Every second we hold gives us a chance to turn this around. General Hale stepped up, a steely gleam in his eyes. What about the maneuver we discussed? Lure them into the lower orbit where our surface cannons can hit them. Daniel turned to him, a faint glimmer of hope in his expression. It's risky, but it's our best shot. We'll lead the main force toward Earth's gravity well and lock them in a crossfire. If they pursue, they'll be within range of our orbital cannons. Hale grinned, a grim smile fit for a warrior facing impossible odds. Let's give them a proper farewell, then. Orders were issued swiftly. Earth's ships began to reposition, maneuvering just close enough to bait the Coalition's forces. The fleet crept toward Earth's orbit, retreating in a staggered, calculated line that masked their true intent. The Coalition, sensing what they believed to be a retreat, surged forward, closing in with brutal efficiency. Daniel's heart pounded as the Coalition's ships drew nearer, their monstrous forms filling the screens, blocking out the distant stars. The tension in the command center was electric, every breath held, every eye fixed on the screen. Ready the cannons, Daniel instructed, his voice a taut whisper. On my mark. The Coalition fleet followed, their formations tightening as they prepared for what they assumed would be the final assault. They were close now, dangerously close, skimming Earth's upper atmosphere, oblivious to the trap they just walked into. Now! Daniel shouted. The orbital cannons fired in unison, immense beams of energy lancing through space and tearing into the Coalition's lead ships. A blinding flash erupted across the screens as the first line of alien ships disintegrated under the force of the blasts. Shockwaves rippled through the Coalition's ranks, sending several vessels spinning wildly, their cohesion fracturing under the sudden onslaught. Cheers erupted in the command center, a rare but brief release of tension. But Daniel didn't allow himself even a moment's reprieve. The battle was far from over, and he knew that desperation would only drive the Coalition to press harder. Target their command ships, he ordered, his voice cutting through the noise. Without coordination, they'll scatter. One by one, Earth's ships unleashed a focused barrage toward the Coalition's command vessels, seeking to break the line where it was most vulnerable. For a moment, it seemed as though their plan might just hold. Coalition ships faltered, struggling to maintain their assault, their ranks becoming a chaotic tangle of panicked movement. But then, a series of alarms pierced through the command center. Lana's face tightened as she scanned her monitor. They're rerouting power to override our disruptors. Their command system is adapting. The Coalition regrouped with alarming speed, their formation quickly reorganizing into a menacing phalanx. Daniel watched as the Coalition commander's ship, unmistakably larger and more ominous than the rest, advanced with grim purpose. Commander Reyes, a voice crackled through a private communication channel. It was the Rix. The Coalition's leader, Karlax, is now spearheading the attack. If he's willing to risk himself on the front line, he's betting everything on this final strike. Daniel clenched his fists. Then we'll meet him head-on. Derrick's voice softened. For what it's worth, Earth has earned allies today. Whatever happens here, know that your courage has not gone unnoticed. The line went silent, and Daniel turned back to his team. Prepare all remaining forces. If Karlax wants a fight, we'll give him one. The Coalition's command ship thundered forward, unleashing a barrage of laser fire that illuminated the control room in blinding flashes. Earth's shields absorbed the brunt of the assault, but each hit rattled the fleet, shaking the control room with bone-jarring tremors. Daniel steadied himself, adrenaline surging through him. Lana, reroute power to the main cannons. We need one concentrated strike on Karlax's vessel. She nodded, fingers flying over the controls, the blue glow of her console casting a fierce light across her face. Power rerouted. Ready to fire on your command. Daniel took a steadying breath, his gaze locked on Karlax's ship as it barreled toward them, a relentless juggernaut. He raised his hand, his voice a calm resolve that cut through the chaos. Fire! The main cannon unleashed its full power, a blazing arc that struck Karlax's vessel dead center. For an instant, time seemed to freeze. Then, the command ship shuddered, a ripple of energy coursing through its hull as cracks webbed across its surface. The massive ship imploded, sending shockwaves that rippled through the coalition's ranks, fracturing their formation into disarray. The control room was silent, everyone staring in awe as Karlax's ship disintegrated into a cloud of debris. The remaining coalition ships wavered, their cohesion shattered, their will to fight drained in an instant. General Hale's voice broke the silence. "They're retreating." A wave of relief washed over the room as the coalition ships scattered, retreating into the vast expanse of space, their once unbreakable force reduced to a fleeing shadow. Cheers erupted, a cacophony of triumph that filled the room, resonating with the long-awaited victory. Daniel let out a slow breath, his shoulders relaxing for the first time since the battle had begun. He glanced at Lana, who offered him a weary but triumphant smile, her eyes shining with pride and exhaustion. "We did it," she said softly, the words carrying a mix of disbelief and joy. Daniel nodded, a faint smile breaking across his face. "We showed them who we are." As the control room began to quiet, Daniel allowed himself a moment of reflection. They had faced impossible odds, had stared down the galaxy's greatest power and emerged, not just standing, but victorious. Earth had proven its strength, its resilience, and its unbreakable spirit. He looked out toward the stars, where the remnants of the coalition fleet faded into the distance. "Let them remember this day," he murmured, a glint of determination in his gaze. "Let them remember that Earth stands united." The final chapter of the battle had closed, but Daniel knew this was only the beginning. Earth had made its mark, and the galaxy would never be the same.